Welcome to the Odd Life Podcast. That's AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. We're here to have conversations to inspire women of all ages to live odd AF. So thank you for joining me. Let's dig in. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's your host, Hallie. What's going on? I am so thrilled to be back talking to you. It wasn't an intentional break. I have been working on a podcast episode from hell, not the guest, just the recording itself. The way that it uploaded was wonky. It's not synced up the way it's supposed to. And so I have to manually try and adjust syncing it up. And it's a doozy, but I'm willing to do it because I want this conversation to reach your ears. And I just have to take a little extra time to do it. So that's why I've been a little delayed on getting on here and having another episode. And so today I'm going to share with you finally my Portugal recap. We did a trip back in June to Portugal, and so I'm going to share that today. But I want to just apologize for not showing up here the last couple of weeks because I've been struggling with this damn episode that I really wanted to get out to you earlier, and it's giving me a lot of stress. I waited for Riverside FM to help me for a little while, and they came back with, we don't know what happened. Good luck, basically. So now I'm having to try other ways to figure this out on my own. And I'm not an audio engineer by any means, and I've just learned along the way. So I'm trying to do all the tricks to get it figured out. But I also just wanted to share that I am going to be taking a break. But I'll have this episode, and hopefully by then, I'll have the other episode edited and ready for you. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a break, probably about a month, sort of regroup, record a bunch of episodes, get them scheduled for the future, and launch season 4. I cannot believe it's been 3 years since I started the podcast. It was September 2022 that I launched the podcast, and now I'm starting up the 4th season of this, and I absolutely freaking love it. This is my favorite thing to do, minus the editing part. That's kind of tough. But I just love bringing women's stories to you all. I love finding women that are inspiring to me, hearing their story, what they've gone through, and then when they tell me yes, that they're willing to be on the podcast, that's a thrill. And then I get to talk to them and learn from them and then share that story with you. So that's my favorite thing about this podcast. Then I try and share in between my own experiences, little life lessons I'm going through. And hopefully through all of that, you find some inspiration and some connection and resonance with someone else's story, whether it's mine or my guests, and that you don't feel so alone or that you feel seen and heard. It's one of my favorite things to hear feedback from you all saying, oh my gosh, that episode, I felt like you were speaking directly to me. And that's why I feel so compelled to keep going, because I know there are people out there that just want to be seen and heard and feel like they're not alone. And it's really what drives me to keep going, because I know somebody's out there that's felt like I felt and needs to hear some reassurance like, hey, you've got this. Or, hey, look, this person went through the same thing and now look where they're at. And I also just feel like we want to feel connected to other women. And sometimes in our everyday lives, it's the parents of the kids our kids go to school with. It's the team parents, or it's the neighbors. And not everyone gets what you're going through, and nor should they. I mean, you're not going to talk to your neighbor Joe about menopause. You need to talk to women that have been through this and understand it. You're trying to figure yourself out. And not everyone understands that. And so when you're going through some tough things or your personal growth journey, you want to feel connected to women that get it, or are traveling down that same path of trying to figure themselves out, grow as an individual, to learn some new things, just understand yourself better. And some people just aren't there. They don't want that. And that's okay. I want you to find women out there so that you don't feel so alone. And that's what I'm hoping with this Odd Life podcast is we can also then create a community around this, because I know I needed that when I was going through some stuff. And I started to find some women through Instagram that I could reach out to that had shared some things they were going through. But man, how great would it be if we could all connect and identify with these topics and come together in a private community online. And then eventually, as we keep growing, we can find each other in our cities and then meet in person. And then you get to have in real life friend that's on the same page as you. So that's the goal. That's why I keep going. And actually, this fills my bucket so much. When I sit here and talk to you and I'm looking at you, I'm like looking at me, but I'm picturing you, I feel like we're hanging out, whether it's around the pool or at a coffee shop or on the back patio with a cup of coffee. That's what I picture when I talk on here. So I try not to edit myself too much. That's why I let the cuss words fly because that's how I talk in real life. I try and make this feel as authentic as possible. I don't read a script. I want this to feel like we're just having a conversation because that's how I feel when I record it. So, like I said, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the Odd Life community. All right, now on to the Portugal recap. First off, let me just tell you that I had never been to Europe before this trip. I was nervous, but I was also very excited. I had seen so many videos. I had been on TikTok and Instagram looking at all these people sharing their European trips, a lot of Portugal trips. And once you find one and you like them and you save them, all of a sudden you're seeing all of them. So my TikTok feed became basically a what to do in Portugal. I started saving all these things, where to eat, where to go, what to see, historical sites, all of this. And I had a notebook ready to go. Things I was nervous about for the most part were really not knowing the weather because it was June. Was it really hot? Was it cool? How many layers do I need to bring? How am I to pack all that? I was determined to have a smaller suitcase. I did not want to lug a monster suitcase. I have seen all the videos, people trying to get to their hotel room, their Airbnb, and they're dragging it up cobblestone streets, and it's windy and uphill and all this. I wanted to have a smaller carry-on with a backpack. So two things I got on TikTok Shop is that damn bag, that backpack that everyone saw that has multiple zippers and compartments, and it fits under the seat in front of you. It could hold a lot. So it's almost like a carry-on suitcase on your back. And what I did was I got those vacuum sealed bags. I had a little portable vacuum that came with a USB port. I probably packed a suitcase and unpacked a suitcase 10 different times. I'm not even kidding. Because I had to figure out what to pack in the backpack and then what to put in the suitcase. And the things I wanted to make sure I had with me, of course, makeup, at least one swimming suit. And then I wanted to make sure I had my gown with me. So we were going out there because my husband's company, he's in sales, he qualified for the trip. And so part of that is actually going to be with the company. And they had a black tie affair, and I had to have a gown. I wouldn't say like fancy gown, but I went to Ariceira, found a really cute strapless white satin dress. So I want to make sure I had my heels in there, my jewelry in there, and the dress, and I vacuum packed that. I didn't need it till the second part of the trip. So I wanted to make sure that did not get lost because then I can't, to replace that was going to be really hard. So I made sure that was in the backpack just in case. I had to figure out what to bring based on where we were going in Portugal. So the first half, we were going to rent a car and go to a couple different places. I know it's not athletic wear, and I know it's not jeans. I didn't want to stand out like I looked like a tourist. I wanted to feel a bit more culturally appropriate for the area. I had to be aware, though, of also what the weather was where we were traveling. And so we had an itinerary. Lisbon the first night, and then we're going to go to a place called Cascais. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And then that was going to be like a little day trip. And then we went to a place called Ericeira, and that is on the coast, a little further northwest of Lisbon. And then we were going to stay for 2 days in Porto. And how I figured all that out was just trying to figure out timeline-wise how much time we had, figured out how far things were. We wanted to rent a car versus taking the train, and we have more flexibility. I am not afraid of driving there, especially because they were driving on the right side of the road versus the left, so that wasn't a freaky thing. We did that in Bahamas, and that's wild for the first time getting on the road, and you're like, what? I am going to crash this car. So it was going to be on the right side of the road. Rental cars are very cheap. The hardest thing is finding places to park. So we had that mapped out. I had to figure out what weather was going to be like in those different places. So what I ended up doing was packing my layers and my dresses and some linen pants and my toiletries and my gown for that special event for the second half of the trip. And then miscellaneous, like my chargers and my laptop. I wasn't going to take my laptop, but I ended up doing it just in case. So we flew off to New Jersey. I think our plane left at 8:30, 9 o'clock that evening. And we were in the back of the bus. And note, a lot of the children were in the back with us. I don't know if that's an unwritten rule, but the kids were in the back. My husband and I usually try and pick aisle seats. So we sit across the aisle from each other so we both have some leg room and can get out easy. He was on the side of the plane with the window. He had a person next to him that had the window seat. He had a seat between them and then himself and then myself and then a little, I think, 5 or 6-year-old next to me, and then her father. And then across the way, mom and their little baby. So that family was separated. So now I'm in the middle row with a child next to me. I have my eye mask. I have the melatonin, just like some sleep gummies, not like gummies, but just some sleep supplements. I had earplugs, the whole deal, blanket. I had a sweatsuit on. And I sort of, I think, got into that level of sleep where you're not completely asleep, but you're not also very cognizant. You're in that weird haze. That's where I was for, I think, about 3 or 4 hours. And this poor child next to me is stretching and trying to find a comfortable seat. Eventually, the child fell asleep. What I ended up doing, because she kept kicking my calves, because she was half laying on the seat, half off. And so I just took her legs and put them on my lap because the poor thing was just trying to get comfortable. And when I put her legs on my lap, she stopped kicking and moving. So it worked out great. And the father was appreciative. I felt kind of weird, but I was like, hey, how about we just do this? Because he kept apologizing, like, no, you're fine. Anyway, so back at the plane is where a lot of the kids are. Just now I know. And that's fine, but it's just tough to fall asleep. It is what it is. So I ended up telling my husband next time, let's sit up front a little closer if we can. It might be worth the extra couple coins. So we landed at 8:30 in the morning, and Lisbon Airport's kind of funky. You get off the plane, and then they get you on a bus, and the bus goes through the tarmac to get to the actual terminal. And then you get off and go through all the rigmarole. If you are traveling with minors, you go to a different place than without minors. If I recall that correctly, there is a digital entry you can go through. It's a quick line. It scans your passport, takes a picture of you. There's the agent there, quickly looks at it, and then off you go. It wasn't bad. I think when you're traveling with minors, that's the issue, if I recall that correctly. Or we just happened to land at a perfect time. We had really zero problem going into the country. It just was a weird setup. We had to go through this wonky maze to get there. But once we did, we were fine. Then we took a rental car to our hotel, which we stayed in a place that was a little bit north of the hub of the historical part of Lisbon. We were on a street called the de Liberdade. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but it's a boulevard that has restaurants and shops and all that. And then it leads you down eventually to the main area of historical Lisbon. We had a parking garage, so we can park our car in there, which was easier than if we had got a hotel closer to the main area. I know that would have been a major problem. So staying away a little bit and then walking down was great. On the way down there, we were walking past Gucci and Prada and all these designer stores. So I knew that was a decent area. So that first day, we got to the hotel, changed into some different clothes, and then walked around. We had a great little lunch off the boulevard and then made our way back to the hotel, went to the pool for a little bit. And then that night, we walked back down towards an outdoor restaurant that we saw when we were shopping. Also in Lisbon, if you didn't know, the second largest Zara in the world is there. So we went there for a minute, got a couple things. Yeah, that was our first day in Lisbon. Nothing crazy. We were in bed probably by 9 o'clock because we were exhausted. So we got up the next day. This is a funny story. And we were going to go to this one place for breakfast before we took off to go to Cascais. And we drove down there thinking, great, let's try and find a parking space because we got up a little late. Husband went to the gym. So by the time we left the hotel, it was almost 10 o'clock. But let's just see if we'll go down there and see if we can find a quick parking spot. If we can't, then we'll take off and go to Cascais and eat there instead. So we drive down. There's this arched walkway where this little restaurant was going to be, this breakfast place. So we're driving, and we go around this block basically. We don't know the street signs, what they mean yet. We didn't look it up. We were just going on our Waze app on our phones. And my husband missed the turn to go left. There's a lot of one ways, tiny roads, because only one car can go through. So it's a lot of one ways. And he missed the turn. He went straight instead. And he about hit this woman. He was dinking around, looking at something else. This woman's walking and she was like, what the hell? He's like, what the hell back? And I was like, dude, you are not in America. Just let her go. The pedestrians always get there right away. So go down this road. And that's actually where we walked the night before. We had stopped and got a pastel de nata. It's their famous little egg custard dessert. It's like a mini pie almost. It's fantastic. And we're driving down this little road. And we turned the corner and realized we were on a pedestrian walkway because we turned the corner. It was like sidewalk. It wasn't a street. There was no stop signs. We had to get over the curb and then come back up. And we laughed because we realized no wonder that lady was pissed off at us because we're going down basically a giant sidewalk. Oops. There was a big circle that indicated it was a pedestrian walkway. And we didn't know that because we didn't know the signs yet. I'm like, well, we probably should figure out what the signs mean. So that's a note. If you're going to rent a car, get to know what the street signs mean before you get in the vehicle so that you don't drive down a pedestrian walkway. So anyway, can't find an easy parking space. We said, screw it. Let's just go to Cascais. So Cascais is a little resort town outside of Lisbon, just to the west. There's a couple beaches. We thought maybe we'd, go to the beach possibly. Well, we got there and now we're a little hangry. We want to find some food. So we go down to the marina thinking there was some outdoor seating there. There was, but it was all under shade and it really wasn't a great view. Not like we thought. So we came back, found a little breakfast place along a little cute street. And we ended up walking around. We didn't end up going to the beach. It was fine. We wanted to see the town, but we didn't want to waste a lot of time. We were driving to Ericeira later. So we did a little shopping. Husband, I think, bought a shirt. I found a really cute turquoise ring. And we were practicing some of our phrases that we were learning. And it's kind of wild because you want to say a lot of Spanish. And it's similar, but there's a lot of differences actually. Like bom dia is good morning. Bom dia, that's completely different than the way you say it in Spanish. So like in Spanish, you'd say buenos dias. Totally different. I had my Google Translate app on my phone. So practicing our Portuguese. We left about 2 p.m, 2:30 or so, and drove up to Ericeira, not very far away, about a 40-minute drive to the countryside. Gorgeous. And it's just so different because all of the homes are white or kind of off-white with a Spanish style red roof. But it's gorgeous and it's hilly and you're seeing like little fortresses in random places on the top of hills. I don't know what they are. I'm trying to look them up on my app to see if I can see what that is. So everything around there is historical. Anyway, we made our way to Ericeira, and the reason why I chose that town was for 2 reasons. One, I'd heard that it was the San Diego of Portugal. Laid back, surfer town, that kind of stuff. And 2 is I had a friend. She was somebody I had on the podcast. Her name was Heather. Her Instagram and her TikTok handle are Mindful Migrant. She talks a lot about how to, if you're looking at moving abroad, especially to Portugal, she gives a lot of advice and tips, and she shares a lot what they've gone through and what they've done to be helpful. She actually is a consultant and she helps them through the process and know what to do. She's very smart about all that. So I'll link her below too, just so that you know. Because if you go over to Portugal, you're going to want to figure out how to move there. I swear to God. So I told her we were coming. I said I would love to connect and see you just for a minute. And so that's why we chose to stay the night. So when we got there, we found the first beach we came to. Found a place to park. It's not super warm. It's very much like California, especially in June. I've been to California in June and I was like, I was not prepared because I was chilly. The breeze off the ocean was chilly. When you say 75 in the Midwest, it feels amazing. And when you're in the sun, it feels hot. Not in California. 75 in California with the ocean breeze was a bit chilly. So it felt very similar. When they said it's the San Diego of Portugal, they weren't kidding. It was very similar weather. We ended up going to the beach, hung out there for a couple of hours, just enjoying the view. And it just was so cool to see people and watch the culture, just to be an observer. I was loving it. We got to our hotel. We used a hotel called Hotel Reserva. And I think what this hotel does, it takes a building, the heart of the city. They turn it into a hotel and it's very quaint, very small, maybe 20 some rooms, nothing very big, very basic. And that's all we needed. And we had the top floor room. We had chairs out in the balcony. We sat out there for a little bit that afternoon. And then that evening, it was gorgeous. Great view. So we got there that afternoon, walked around a little bit, and then went back, showered for the night. And she said, we're going to actually go to this one wine bar. And they have a DJ that goes out and entertains the crowd. And we all watch the sunset together. You're welcome to come join us for some tapas and wine and whatnot. So we walked there, met Heather, gave her a big hug, met her husband, and then her mom was in town visiting. So we got a chance to talk. It was such a great time. We learned about their experience even more. My husband got a chance to talk to her husband. The husbands, hit it off. So we all just had a great conversation. Ericeira, it's very hilly, and where we were, it's a huge cliff. So the view was amazing. So they closed off the street. There was tables outside, people lingering, and there was an 18-year-old DJ. It was like jazz music mixed with a little EDM. It was so cool. People watching, talking to them, hearing their experience, learning about the business her husband's going to start up, what she was doing, talking to her mom. Her mom was a best-selling author. She wrote romance novels for years and years, retired from it. She travels all the time. Such a cool experience. We had a few tapas with them, just something small, and we wanted to go to a nicer dinner. So they told us where to go, and they walked us there and introduced us to the owner or the manager, and we ended up getting a seat outside. It's very small. There was maybe 4 tables inside, 3 outside. It's a little chilly, but where we sat, we were out of the wind. It was in a small, quaint little corner, and we had a gorgeous evening as we sat outside, had an amazing meal. Again, I'll put that in the show notes where we ate. If you want it, there was no plan where to eat because I left that list of all the things we're supposed to go do and see at home. And it was a happy accident because I ended up not using that list at all. I kept trying to remember to call my kids and say, hey, can you take a picture of that list? It's on my desk and send it to me. But when I remembered it, it'd be 8 in the morning in Portugal and they're still in bed. So by the time they were up, the day was already gone and I didn't need it and I forgot about it. So we just went with it. This amazing dinner recommended to us and it was perfect. One of the best meals we had. The next day, Heather and her husband told us that every Friday morning, they go into the ocean with their friends and they do a cold plunge and they meet up for coffee down at this. It's actually an American surf store and I can't think what it is, but they had a little coffee shop there and they would meet and like, you know what, it'd be kind of fun. Let's go do that. Well, because our meal was a little bit later, we didn't get home till almost 11 from dinner and our walk through town to get back to our hotel. We slept in, but we got up. We're going to go for a walk through the town. And we said, why don't we just go down and meet them for coffee? They should be done by now. So went down and met them for coffee, met their friends and their group. There was a couple of surfer girls, girl living out of her van. There was a local artist, really well-known in the area, very successful. Another gentleman that was a serial entrepreneur. He'd done all kinds of businesses, lived everywhere. Great conversation. So fun to talk to these people. And it was those types of things that were the most memorable for us. So I really thank Heather and Peter for including us in their little group of people and their friends and their activities. Wish I would have done the cold plunge. We just did not get into bed early enough. But that was one of our favorite things. So just the people were amazing. And that's something that I really want to do is I want to travel with ease and confidence, have meaningful experiences and make friends whenever we travel and keep those friendships alive. I think it makes something so memorable when you get to experience what the locals do. We walked around Ericeira a little bit, went into a local market, and it was just really cool to see where the locals hung out, what the shops had, super quaint coffee shops, just really laid back chill. Cool vibe for sure. And I was obsessed with the architecture. I was obsessed with the little cobblestones they had. There's little kind of off-white cream squares. I freaking love them. They're all over, like that's all they use for the street, the sidewalk. And then you're walking through these side streets that feel like alleyways, but they're really a street for one little car. And you have people hanging their laundry from the balcony as you're walking through. I took a million pictures of doors and windows and architecture. They're my favorite thing. One of my favorite ones was in Ericeira. It's this blue door. Something about it just makes me feel cozy. I don't know how else to explain it. Just beautiful. And so we spent a little time there and then we took off for Porto. And Porto is about a 3.5-hour drive. So mostly highway. Then you pull into Porto and it's like, bam, hilly, these huge bridges, the river. It's gorgeous. We stayed 2 nights right on the river. There's a Porto side of the river and then there's Gaia. So we stayed in Gaia right next to this famous bridge. I think it was the Luis Bridge. There's a main walkway underneath and then there's a tram that goes on the top of the bridge. So we'd walk across every night to go over to the Porto side and go to eat and walk around. We had a Airbnb. There was 3 levels. It was a tiny itty bitty building. We walked past it 3 different times to try and find it. Finally found it, got in with a code. And then once you go inside, there's a key to get into your apartment. That was one of the coolest rooms I've ever stayed in. It wasn't super expensive. It was the most expensive we paid. I think it was like $230 a night. But it had a gorgeous stone wall on both sides. It was a 2-bedroom. So we kept our luggage in one room and then slept in the other room. Cool view. We had these French doors onto this balcony. It was itty bitty, like maybe a foot. And we'd open the doors to listen to the people talking and music being played. It was stunning. So we stayed there for 2 days, walked all over the place. Again, I had a list of things to do in Porto. Could care less. We just walked everywhere. We went for a walk the morning after we got there and walked up the river, went to a different bridge, up and over the bridge, came down the other side, and we came across this amazing cathedral. And there was a tour. You could take $11 a person. This sanctuary was gilded and covered with all kinds of statues. And I think construction of it was started in the 1200s and didn't finish until the 1400s. That's what's wild as you go to Europe and everything is so old. And we have no concept of what old here is, something that was in the 1800s. On the East Coast, they have a lot more historical buildings there, but in the Midwest, we're the 1800s here. And even then, they weren't built like they were in Europe. And some of these buildings are insane. I came across a building in Porto that was medieval and they built around it. And they had a plaque there explaining. Came across that by complete accident. Like, we haven't gone down this street yet. So we walked down that street. There's little cafes everywhere. You're walking down this street. It feels like an alley, but it's a street. And there's a woman hanging her laundry outside. And there's a man, just no shirt, older guy, looking down on the people hanging out in his neighborhood. You turn the corner, it's a little tiny neighborhood, and there's a tiny little cafe. The next corner you go to, there's some women selling fresh fruit and some vegetables. And they're getting ready to celebrate something that night. And so they had a little festival they're preparing for. Super cute. So I had the best time. I drank more espressos and lattes than I've ever in my entire life there. The coffee there just hits different. There's a coffee shop and a pastry shop, basically every other storefront, it felt like. I had a lot of pastel de natas. They were very good. So the sugar intake and the caffeine intake was pretty much through the roof when I was there. But you're walking. So your blood sugar is not elevated for very long because you are immediately then walking and hoofing it. Just a heads up, I had these Hey Dude sandals, and you're going to go, what the hell, Hallie? Hey Dudes? Let me tell you, these are the best freaking sandals I've owned. They have a foam bottom that's, I'm not kidding you, like 2-3 inches. And then it has these leather straps on top. They're just slip-ons. Those were freaking awesome. So between those and my New Balances, that was it. And then I had other shoes to go to a dinner close by, not a lot of walking, but that's what I wore most of the time. And it was perfect. We saw street performers. We saw art. I shared this in a Substack recently. There was all these cafes and restaurants and outdoor seating areas. And a lot of people just sat there, hung out, drank, ate food, people watching. And he was sitting there coated from head to toe in some sort of gray, whether it was paint. I don't know what he put on his face, but it was gray and kind of cracked. He looked like he was made out of cement. Everything. He had this cobbler's bench. He had cobbler's tools, shoes. Everything was covered in this gray. And I'll share it. If you're going to go on YouTube and watch this, I'll put the picture of it on the YouTube video. And he was sitting there with his hand just like poised with his hammer. And he had a canister sitting out. And my husband went to put money in his canister. All he had was bills at that time, didn't have any change. Put it in his canister, and he all of a sudden started hammering away at this shoe, maybe 4 or 5 times. Like, oh, okay, so he performs after he gets paid versus performing and then getting paid. And later we came back, and there were people standing around, and somebody put a smaller coin in his canister, and he went, "Nying," and that's it. So he did more for more money. So he would, out of the corner of his eye, see what you were putting in his canister, and then, but he did not move. He looked straight at his little cobbler table and waited. There was a little plaque next to him a few feet away that said he had won some sort of award for his living art, I guess. And then his wife would be hanging out close by, and she would bring him some water in a straw, and she would hold it up to him, and he'd drink some water, and she'd go sit farther away. So things like that I don't see every day around here. And like I said, just the people were so nice. The restaurants were fantastic. I don't think we had a bad meal, honestly. There's some local foods that everyone wanted us to try. There was this one thing, I don't know how you pronounce it. It starts with an F. It's like a sandwich. It has 3 different kinds of meats in it. And then it has a gravy on top. And then I think an egg on top of that. Yeah, it didn't sound good. So we didn't eat that. I think the food was fantastic. Had no issues whatsoever. It was something about Porto, just magical. We could have easily spent a week there. And then we left Porto to go to then the second half of our trip down in Sintra. And Sintra is basically a suburb of Lisbon. That's where our hotel was for my husband's company paid portion of the trip. We're going to hit a coffee shop on the way out. We missed our turn. Like, oh, let's just keep going. We'll find another one. So we went to this little coastal town to find a coffee shop. Said there was one there. The maps was out of date. There wasn't a coffee shop. But we saw this cute little surf town and we walked along the beach and watched some surfers. Ended up finding a little coffee place. It was actually where the underground train was. We grabbed a quick coffee and a pastry and took off. So went to Sintra. We stayed at the Ritz-Carlton there. I don't even remember the hotel, honestly. And then that's sort of the work portion of the trip started. The first night was in the monastery. It was gorgeous. They had some performers outside. They had some dancing, some music that was about their culture, and got a chance to see that, which was great. I'm all about that. Then another day, they took us down to Cascais. We got on speedboats. And I don't think I realized that's what it was initially. You know what it's like to sit in a roller coaster? That's what it was, but on a boat. It's big rubber boats. And they were going to give us a tour of parts of Lisbon on the water. So now we're on these speedboats. I did my hair. If I would have known this, I would have had my hair pulled back because it was a disaster when I got done. There's like 5 boats on this. Then they dropped us off in Lisbon and we all got on tuk-tuks and they did a little tour of Lisbon. Did that. It was great. Crazy. I mean, it was very busy a day. So it was a nuts day for tourism. But got a chance to see things in Lisbon we hadn't seen before, which was great. Like learn about these old cathedrals and learn that Lisbon had been hit by a tsunami, flooded, had earthquakes, and a lot of that historical area had to be rebuilt. We did see the oldest house in Lisbon. It was high enough on a hill that it didn't get damaged. It was a 1-story home. So just gorgeous views. Lisbon in general is just beautiful. And the people are so nice. So nice. And then the last day we were there, we had a special event. It was our black tie affair. We went to a palace. And again, I'll share all this in the show notes, but this palace was just for us. There's a museum inside the palace as well. It has all of the furniture and bedrooms and everything set up so you can walk through. It's roped off and you can see how they lived in this palace. We had our meal in the ballroom. There were 2 ballrooms actually, and it was stunning. They had these gorgeous gardens that were basically modeled after Versailles. When they had cocktail hour, they had these horses and they were dressed up in traditional garb, and their riders were all in traditional outfits. And they rode their horses through a series of canters and runs and walks through this boxwood maze. It was stunning. Again, I'll show pictures on the YouTube video, but oh my gosh, gorgeous. Like, is this even real? The palace was amazing. Our dinner was amazing. They had violinists playing for us. They were playing contemporary songs. And we were like, okay, what is this song? What is this song? Like, oh my gosh, it's the song, like Neil Diamond's song. They had that song from, do you remember during COVID, there was the guy that had his girlfriend in the back of the van and he was walking behind the van singing the song to her and he proposes to her at the end. I cannot think of that song, but they played that on the violin. Stunning. And that was our last night. Bussed us back to the hotel. But in general, Portugal, amazing. Easy to rent a car. I highly recommend. The train, not necessary. If you want to have no worries and you want to ride the train, go for it. But having a car was fantastic. We could come and go as we pleased. So I guess the takeaway that I have of Portugal is that we loved that we didn't have an agenda. We didn't have a list of things we wanted to see. We let happen what we were supposed to let happen, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. We had such a blast just going with the flow. It felt very relaxed, very chill. We had no pressure to go do anything, to see all the things. We got just enough where we didn't feel exhausted and didn't feel worn out by our trip. It was amazing. Our last night in Porto, we're like, okay, I think we've seen all we need to see. Let's just go hang out and watch people. We stopped and got a couple of waters and I bought a deck of cards. So we ended up going to this little sidewalk area where there's all the people watching. And we learned, okay, what game can we play? This 2 people. Let's try gin rummy. Never played it before. My husband ordered a beer. I had a glass of, they had NA wine. It wasn't fantastic, but it was still fun. And we played cards for about an hour or so. And they're like, okay, I think we've seen what we need to see. Let's head back. That was fun. We just wanted to go with the flow. And it felt so awesome to do that. Another thing I'll say about Portugal, it's very affordable. It just goes to show how we are being fleeced here in America. You guys, we would get 2 espressos and then 2 pastries. We were in Ericeira and It was $4.50 euros. And my husband goes, did you get the pastries? And he said, oh yeah. Are you kidding me right now? You get a scone for $4.50 at this point. So the affordability was awesome. I mean, all the meals we had, $12 to $15 for dinner, very comparable, if not cheaper. You can't get a burger and fries for less than $15 these days. I swear to God. And if you go to these smaller towns, it's heaven. It's heaven. I think you can find Airbnbs, you can find hotel rooms that aren't super expensive. I think it's a very affordable place to go if you want to see Europe and get the feel of being in a European country without having to pay a gazillion dollars. So that was so nice. Cascais was a little more touristy, but it had great vibe too. It was very low key, very small. It's a big marina that's there. So if you wanted to go rent a boat, get on the water, you probably want to go to Cascais. There was another town I wanted to go to. I think it's called Panesh, and we didn't make it there. But they had a marina. They had excursions to go out to snorkel. That would have been freezing. Honestly, I'm kind of glad we didn't do that because snorkeling in cold water is very different than snorkeling in a very tropical environment. Not sure we would have seen a whole lot. I don't know. We might have, but I just didn't need to do that. There was an old fortress that was there on the water. Would be kind of cool to see that, but didn't make it, is what it is. Went with the flow. The thing I think to know when you go is to try and learn to say as much as you possibly can in their language. I do want to go back. My friend Heather mentioned if you want to come back, a great time to come back September, October. The weather is still amazing and the tourist season's over for the most part. The locals take their vacations in August. So the beaches are crazy, but September, October, a lot more chill. So if that's something you need to know. So we thought maybe not this year, but maybe next year, if we want to go back, we go back in the fall and we could stay a little longer. As far as theft goes, there really was nothing to worry about except for pickpocketing, those kinds of things, which I think that's pretty much every big city. I would encourage you. Yes, do your research, kind of find out where you want to be, the places you want to visit, but maybe not have as much of a plan as you think you need. Sort of go with the flow. Maybe ask the locals what I should see, where we should go, and you'll get an amazing experience, I think. So have maybe a rough plan, but not have it down to the specific, okay, at this time we're going here and then we're doing this. We had such a relaxed time. We didn't feel like we needed a vacation from the vacation. I think because of all the walking that you do, you're up and you want to see all the things. It's a different kind of vacation. But I absolutely freaking loved it. I think you need to put Portugal on your list for sure. If you want to message me about anything, ask more questions, feel free to send me a message on Instagram or send me an email. Happy to share what I know. I've only been to Europe one time. I don't know anything really. I just know my own experience and how amazing it was. And I think the right shoes, layers of clothing, and I think not having a plan is a plan. Going the flow, ask the locals, pay attention to festivals as well. This is another thing that maybe could impact your stay. We were getting into Porto right before a big festival. It was the Festival of Saint Juan. And that is where they walk around with these little rubber mallets and they hit each other with it. And it's a nonstop party and all night long the music's going and people are drinking all night and partying all night. We left Sunday morning to go to Sintra. And that night, I think is when it started, Sunday night into Monday. So we missed it. I don't know if I would have loved to not sleep all night because of the noise and the partying and all that. Not my vibe. Kind of cool to see maybe from afar, but I think there's a lot of those kind of festivals because it's usually based around their religious culture and the religious celebrations they have. So paying attention to that is important. It may affect your ability to find a hotel room or an Airbnb where the prices have gone up because of the demand for those festivals. So pay attention, maybe those kinds of things. But other than that, I think winging it was the best. If you want to see some pictures of the trip, I have it on my Instagram. I do have Portugal highlights. And then I also have pictures on this YouTube video for this podcast episode. So that's my Portugal recap. If you end up going, let me know. Or if you've been, let me know where you've been. If you've got suggestions, we want to go back again. We maybe want to hit other places and see different parts of the country. But it was one of the highlights of my life. That is for sure. Again, if you want to catch up outside the podcast, head over to Substack. It's in the show notes. You can find all my posts there, my newsletter that I send out once a week. And then if you want to join our little private chat, hang out with me there. let's talk after the podcast. Join our Odd Life community. It's our little community of women that are also pursuing living an awake, well, and empowered life. So come hang out. All right. Love you all. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this episode either helpful, inspiring, entertaining, or just made you feel less alone. Or maybe all of those things. If so, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a friend as well as on your social media. And if I dare ask for more, to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You see, the more reviews we have, the more people we can reach, and the bigger the Odd Life community can become. You guys are the best. I can't wait to chat again next week, so we'll see you then.